If you're considering having children or going on birth control, I think a wonderful idea is go to a public pool. Go to a public pool and spend the day there. Just sit there and observe what goes on. Or go Christmas break, spring break, I think is even bigger. I think President's Weekend might be one of the biggest weekends of the year. Pick a Mach 5 kids holiday weekend. Go to an all-inclusive resort, like a place where everything is included and free drinks are included and parents are just sit by the pool, and then you decide if parenting is correct for yourself, because birth control pills are always just like tampon commercials are kind of just about like women and women's choices and what they're always just like, they look like tampon commercials. And I just don't think that birth control pills should look like tampon commercials. Birth control pills should look like a beachside Marriott on the busiest holiday weekend, or like the Jersey Shore on Memorial Day Monday, or Saturday night, like a 6:00 sort of dinner buffet, like a good poolside big barbecue, all you can eat kids event with like, there's a barbecue and then there's a pool, like any real serious kids event. That's what a birth control commercial should be like. I mean, just saying, if this isn't for you, then you should consider birth control. I just think that would be a better, a cruise. Go on a cruise. Get on a cruise. See if you could do a day pass. Call up management. I'm considering parenting. And I heard this is like a Disney cruise. There's going to be a lot of kids on here, all excited. And I just want to come on, go to Universal for the day. Universal, go to Disney. Just go on like a Saturday, 4th of July weekend. Just show up there. Just like, I'm thinking of having kids. This is how I'm going to decide. But at the end of the day, please report back. I just want to hear what you decide. And if you maybe decide about the number of kids maybe changing, because I know that one kid is one kid, and that's, got its challenges, but it's fairly easy, like running on 2. Now you got to you got to ask more than one person what they want to do, because we are our kids' assistants and we do work for them. I serve at the pleasure of my daughter. And then you have 3, and 2 kids is 2 kids, and 3 becomes 9. So it's your body and your choice, and children are wonderful, but I just think you should enter into that lifelong commitment with both eyes open. And I think you should go to a massive pool that definitely has a water slide, definitely has a frozen drink machine behind the bar. Typically a bar that is located inside a pool so you could pee while drinking alcohol. That's kind of the places that I think you should decide what your parenting journey is going to entail. Today's guest is Scott Harrison, founder and CEO of a nonprofit called Charity Water, which aims to bring clean drinking water to every person on the planet. Scott got his start in the nightclub and party scene working as a promoter in Manhattan. Uninspired by the luxury of nightclub culture, shocking, he completely changed the trajectory of his career. Scott traveled to the coast of Liberia to volunteer as a photojournalist and got inspired to change the realities of areas without access to clean drinking water. With the help of over 1 million donors, the organization has brought in more than $640 million. This has helped fund over 91,000 water projects in 29 countries. The charity continues to grow today, expanding access to clean water worldwide. Scott's journey from nightclub connoisseur to businessman and humanitarian is an inspiring tale that I'm sure you will love. I hope you enjoy today's show. You moved from LA? Because a lot of people did that, right?
Yeah. I mean, we lived in Tribeca, Soho for, a quarter of a century, and just moved out during the pandemic and are kind of liking life outside the city for a while.
Wow. Okay. Well, this will be interesting. This will be different. Some things I read about you are similar to my partner, Michael, who's on the ground right now in Poland.
Okay.
And he had to use your word, or I think you described as hedonistic nightclub background. He used to be friends with Madonna and Ingrid Guisaris and did all the Miami nightclubs, and
yep.
Then built like $30 to $50 million houses for rich people in Miami. And then he fell on hard times, which I would let him tell the story on his own, and was like basically homeless. But he's dedicated his life to disaster relief. So, and it's funny because the two of us have a big production background. Him doing clubs, and me, I used to do like events on Alcatraz, big events for Disney, like multi-million dollar
Amazing.
events. And the logistics really do tie into philanthropy and as does business. So when people ask me about it, I always think about an interesting, weird background that sort of could make you good at philanthropy. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that with you.
And I'm still promoting. I've been promoting something different for 15 years, right? Than the velvet rope.
You were a nightclub promoter like him, so you're just promoting something different. Yeah, you got to be a hype man too to get people to believe in you, because there are so many other efforts too. Yeah. So, all right. So where did you grow up?
Great. I was born in Philadelphia, and middle-class family. My dad was a business guy. My mom was a writer. And when I was 4, there was a carbon monoxide gas leak in our house, and we all almost died, Bethenny. So
like really?
My mom on New Year's Day, 1980, walks across the bedroom, collapses.
No.
Like the canary in the coal mine.
You really don't smell it? Nothing?
Nope.
Carbon monoxide is nothing?
Nope.
That's so
and we know
scary.
people who've died with this. So there was a crack in the heat exchanger. Thank God mom passed out. This led to the series of blood tests. It led to the discovery of carbon monoxide in her bloodstream. And then my dad found the leak and ripped it out. After the gas company had come a couple times and said, "Oh no, everything's fine here. We don't think there's any problems." So, life changed for me at 4. Mom became an invalid for the rest of permanently disabled, really, for the rest of her life. So
From this experience,
what happened was her immune system just irreparably shut down, and everything in the world made her sick from this point on. So car fumes would make her sick. Soap would make her sick. I mean, if you brought cologne or perfume anywhere near her, she would break out. She would get migraines. So we kind of moved her into a bubble. They actually made a movie about this with Julianne Moore many years ago called Safe. And my mom was allergic to the world. So as a child, I remember
it's like that Boy in the Bubble, the Boy in the Bubble movie.
It's kind of like Bubble Boy, right? So I remember she lived in a bathroom upstairs, covered in aluminum foil. She slept on an army cot that had been washed 20 times in baking soda to get all the smells out. And she wore 3M masks. So I never really saw my mom's face growing up. I mean, for the last 40 years or so, my mom would wear, N95 masks or charcoal masks because, to avoid exposure. She was so sick, Bethenny. I remember that the ink, the print from books, new books, would make her sick. So my dad and I would bake her books in the oven that she wanted to read, try to outgas, get that smell out. And then I would walk upstairs. I would knock on her bathroom door. She would open it. It would kind of make the sound of tinfoil, flapping. She would greet me with a mask on and a cellophane bag and cotton gloves. And she would take the book from me and she would put it inside this cellophane bag, and then she would be able to read. So that was childhood.
That sounds traumatic for you. I mean, beyond her. I mean, it sounds traumatic for her, but that sounds like a traumatic childhood. You're a tremendous caretaker because you had to walk on eggshells your whole life.
It was all I knew. I wrote a book a couple years ago, and the writer that I was working with, she said the same thing. She's like, "Oh my gosh, like I was crying, like, just imagining you as a little boy." And I'm like, I had such a normal childhood. What are you talking about? Everything was fine. I was a caregiver and I did the cooking and the cleaning for mom, and I was needed, and I wanted to be a doctor when I grew up to help, sick people like my mom. And so I wasn't kind of aware, I don't think at the time, this was just the only life that I'd ever known, which was, dealing with hardship and a life of grit and determination.
Well, it took a long road to get you into philanthropy. So what did you want to be when you grew up, and what did you do for a living for most of your life?
Yeah, well, I always had, the entrepreneurial genes growing up. So I would sell holiday cards door to door. I would, borrow money for a leaf blower, and then I would go and, blow the leaves off neighbors' lawns. But the answer would have been doctor. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to help cure my mom and others. And my parents were Christians, kind of non-denominational Christians. So I grew up in a family of faith. I went to church every Sunday. I played piano. And I was that good kid that didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't swear, didn't have sex, I was the good kid. So then all that changed. Act 2, 18 years old. I moved to New York City with a band, and I joined a rock band, and I was going to, get our band a record deal. We were going to become rich and famous. We were going to be, opening up for U2 at Madison Square Garden in like a period of months. Right?
Were you good?
We were pretty good. I mean, we played at CBGB's and, some of the legendary clubs. We were discovered by, the Scorpions and some big managers. The band hated each other. You weren't
the worst. You could have been successful.
We weren't the worst. We could have been a thing, but the band all hated each other and everybody was doing drugs. So that lasted about 6 months.
Okay. What was it called?
Sunday River.
Okay.
After a ski resort in New Hampshire that none of us had ever been to.
Okay. Like it. Sounds authentic.
So I moved to the city. For a time, I thought I wanted to be an actor. So I was, auditioning for commercials. I put on a David Mamet play off Broadway. Then I was working at a music store. And then at 19, I stumbled into the nightclub business. And I realized there was this extraordinary job in New York City where if you could get the right rich and beautiful people into the right clubs, you could make a ton of money selling them alcohol.
Can I ask how old you are?
19. So 2 years before I'm legally allowed. Oh, now I'm 46. 46.
Because I know this language because I grew
Limelight,
up
Tunnel.
At 14 going to the Palladium.
Yep.
Yeah, so
I know Palladium well.
Okay.
So my first job was for Peter Gatien, working at Limelight and working at the Tunnel, and worked at Lotus for many years and Pangea and a bunch of. The next 10 years kind of went by very quickly. I worked at 40 clubs across Manhattan, and you know the scene. I mean, Jay-Z at table 1, Puffy at table 3, and the club promoters with the models sitting at table 2, thinking we're fantastic and fabulous, and spraying champagne from the DJ booth down over the crowd.
Mark and Eugene and Noah and Jason and the
worked
whole
with all
group.
of them.
Yep. I know them all very well.
So, I picked up all the vices that you would imagine would come with that territory. Lots of smoking, drinking, sleeping around, chasing models to Milan and Paris and, London fashion shows, then the drugs, then the gambling and the pornography and the strip clubs, and just this kind of dark descent, which looked like the exact opposite of doctor. Medical school never really happened.
From doctor to douchebag.
I like that. See, that would have been a great title for a book.
I agree. You could still write it.
So at 28, I was, at a nice loft in Midtown. I had a grand piano in my apartment. I drove a BMW. I had the stupid Rolex watch, and I started having some health issues. Yeah, we'd go to the Hamptons. We'd go to Punta del Este and Buzios, and we'd follow Guy from Cirque du Soleil around.
Right.
It was a whole scene.
Right. I got it.
And I was miserable, Bethenny. I mean, I was completely miserable. I was drunk and, drugged out of my mind. We'd go to dinner at 10 p.m. We'd go to the club at 12. We'd go to after hours at 5. And I'd be taking an Ambien at noon, trying to go to sleep, looking out my window at other people, having salads on their lunch break.
Right. Right.
Have worked like productive jobs all day. So I one day half my body goes numb. And I remember my club partner is like, dude, no wonder. Like, it's amazing you're even alive. How you can't feel your body. Like
Bell's palsy?
I had no idea. Bethenny, I thought I had a neurological disease and I was going to die.
Okay.
So I got the brain scans. I got the CT scans. I got, nodes hooked up and electric, pulses. Nobody could find anything wrong with me.
Okay.
And for me, it was a real wake up call that I was like mortal. I'd been living like I was going to live forever. And I just asked myself the question, like, oh my gosh, like, what if I die in the next couple months? What has my life been about?
Your legacy is nothing.
Literally nothing. My tombstone would read, here lies a club promoter who got 1 million people wasted. That's the only thing you would have been able to say. Not that I volunteered for a charity or gave or like did anything constructive except get people into a club and get them messed up.
Right. Oh my God, you've got to talk to Michael, you can't even believe your lives. They're like, so you don't understand. He's recovered on his own. He did it. and never done anything since. Like, it's crazy, but he's dedicated his life to philanthropy. You have to talk to him.
Yeah,
I
can't wait.
almost going to suggest today that we do it another day and that I have you both on to talk, but you guys should talk to each other. Like, it's
Awesome.
I've never said that before. You got to meet him. But anyway, okay, so you have a worthless life and a useless, empty tombstone. And then, okay.
And then I'm a pretty radical guy. So I wind up asking myself the question, what would the opposite of my life look like? And I think the realization was, a pivot is not needed here. This is not a small course correction.
Right.
Like, go find the exact opposite of everything I say, think, and do.
But were you tied into anyone where like you owed and you were like shackled? Because sometimes I feel like it's hard to get off the treadmill when you're shackled to something, and then one thing keeps you tied back in, and then you do another thing, or would you were just you would just do a party, make money, so you could totally get out.
No actual club, no kind of ownership. We were like mercenaries. The minute nobody wanted to go to the club, we found the next one they wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And tried to make money there.
Okay.
So, I asked this question, what's the opposite of my life look like? And the only thing I could think of was, what if I took 1 year, and this was kind of a childhood biblical idea of a tithe. What if I gave 10% of the decade that I'd wasted in service to others? And I got this idea, like, what if I volunteered somewhere? But
do you have money? Do you have money saved? How much money do you have?
No, not really. I mean, we were making great money, and whatever we made, we spent a little more.
Yeah. So you were broke at that point too. I
was pretty broke. Yeah. I mean, the clubs were still going, the parties were still going. There was some money coming in, not much, but yeah, no, I didn't have anything saved. Nothing saved. Put it this way.
You have to leave the apartment, and you can't sustain that life right then unless.
I literally liquidated my entire life. I sold, watches. I sold my, video camera. I sold my speaker system. I just got rid of everything. Okay. And I started applying to some of the famous humanitarian aid agencies or charities that I'd heard of over the years, like Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross and UNICEF and World Vision. And, maybe to the surprise of no one listening, I'm denied by every organization I apply to. They are not looking for, drug addled nightclub promoters.
Well, wait a minute. I don't understand. You wanted a paid position at a...
No, I wanted to volunteer.
You're telling me that none of these places would let you volunteer?
Correct.
You didn't know about Be Strong then. That's
I didn't know. No.
Well, that, by the way, we could go into the big orgs for days and the money, that's the bureaucracy and all that. It's my entire life, but very interesting.
So one organization wrote me back and they said, if I was willing to pay them $500 a month for the pleasure of volunteering, and I was willing to go live on a hospital ship in Liberia, West Africa, a country, it was actually, Bethenny, the poorest country in the world at that time. It had fallen off the United Nations development chart because there was no data for a 14-year civil war that had just ended. And my volunteer role that I was paying $500 a month was going to be to be a photojournalist on the ship. And I was not a photojournalist, but I had been a pretty good writer. I had managed to get a degree at NYU, just going part-time in communications. And
While you were club promoting?
While I was club promoting.
So you always had a little angle of you that wanted to be or do something. You had some meaning, but you didn't get pulled into the dark side.
Yeah, and I was an only child, and my dad had saved up, and it felt like, I had to honor him at least by mailing him a diploma that I actually never saw. It just went straight to him. I was like, Dad, here, I did this for you. I was like a C- student. Well, anyway, the degree helped me get this job as a photojournalist, which then, changed the entire course of my life. So a couple weeks later, I was in West Africa, walking up the gangway of a 522-foot hospital ship full of 350 volunteers who'd come from 41 countries.
Wow.
And they were doctors and surgeons and nurses who had come to offer free medical care in a country that had no electricity, no running water, no sewage system.
Oh my God.
And one doctor for every 50,000 of its citizens.
Oh my God.
And here in America, we have a doctor for every 280 of us.
That's
so
insane.
There was no healthcare system. Everything had been broken with a decade and a half of war, of terrible civil war led by kids and this terrible guy, Charles Taylor. So my life changed. My third day there, I woke up at 5 a.m. and I was told that the whole mission started with a patient screening. And this was where we'd advertise that the ship was coming full of doctors, and people would turn up with their different, illnesses and sicknesses, and we would schedule them for treatment. We would schedule them for surgery on the ship.
Surgery? Wait, what? Why?
Surgery. So people had cleft lip. We specialize in cleft lips and facial tumors and cataracts and flesh-eating disease. Tumors were a really big thing.
Yeah.
Just growing on people's faces without access to a healthcare system. So I knew that we had 1,500 kind of passes to hand out, surgery passes to hand out. We'd be able to help 1,500 people. And then I learned the government had given us a football stadium, like the soccer stadium in the center of the city, to triage the people that would come. And at 5:30 in the morning, I jumped in a Land Rover. I was in hospital scrubs. I had 2 Nikon D1X cameras, and we kind of snaked through the city. And we come up on the stadium, and there's more than 5,000 people standing in the parking lot waiting for us to open the doors.
And you only have 1,500.
Yeah. And I will never forget that moment where we sent eventually over 3,000 sick people home without the chance to see a doctor, with no hope. We later learned many of them had walked for more than a month from neighboring countries with their children.
Oh my God.
They'd walked from Sierra Leone or Cote d'Ivoire or Guinea or Togo, just hoping to see a doctor, but we didn't have enough doctors.
That's horrible.
That turned into a year of meeting extraordinary doctors and surgeons from all over the world. I had to document all 1,500 people pre-op and post-op. So I'm getting to know these, kids that are blind with cataracts, or 65-year-old women who live their entire life with a cleft lip because they didn't have $180 to fix it. And even if they did, what surgeon would they have gone to? So it was an amazing experience. The cool thing is I had about 15,000 people on my email list. And this was back when open rates were like 95%. So people went from getting invited to Lotus or the Prada Megastore in Soho, to a fashion party, to pictures of leprosy and tumors and, cleft lips being repaired. And, of course, my list got a little smaller. There are a bunch of people who unsubscribed and said, did not sign up for this.
Right.
This is not fashion.
Right.
This is not fun. But so many people were really moved and, began to give money.
Like you said, I changed my life. I dedicated my life to this.
Yeah. I mean, I'd been doing cocaine with these people 4 weeks previous.
Right.
At a club. So I think they were just... They were fascinated just to see, it felt bizarre. Like, where's this guy? Where's this country? Like a hospital ship, like leprosy. I mean, it was just so foreign.
Yeah.
And over the next year, I kind of just let them see what I was seeing through the eyes of a layperson, through the eyes of the doctors, and through some of the, the extraordinary nurses. And I wound up raising a lot of money for that organization and a bunch of awareness, and getting published in the Wall Street Journal and, papers in London of my photos and stories. So I came back to New York after a year. I didn't know what was next. So I just signed up for another year. And it was really that second year when I saw same people.
Okay.
Went back to Liberia. And it's there that I saw people drinking dirty water for the first time in the rural villages. And I was really determined to get off the ship, out of the city, and understand how people were living throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing a 13-year-old girl drink from a green swamp.
Ugh. Wow.
And, Bethenny, I'd been selling Voss water for $10.
Right.
People would order 10 bottles of water for $100 and not even drink the water. They would just drink champagne or vodka instead.
Yeah, but have it at the table.
So I just couldn't. I had never seen children, I'd known clean water. I'd taken it for granted my entire life. And I learned 2 things. I learned half the country didn't have clean water to drink, and half the disease in the country was because people were drinking disgusting water and didn't have access to hygiene or sanitation. So, I kind of stumbled into the root cause of so much of the sickness that we were seeing, so many of these conditions that we didn't even have enough resources to treat. And there were, like a couple million people that didn't have the most basic need for health met. So maybe this is full circle back to the wanting to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. The chief medical officer, the chief surgeon who'd been there for 25 years, I said something to the effect of, Scott, you care about medicine? You care about global health? You want to be a doctor? Just go get everybody in the world clean water. You'll be the greatest doctor that the world has ever seen.
Because I'm thinking more about this now with myself and with what, how much money I've been able to raise and what we've been able to resolve in different relief efforts. And the circuitous route to get there, meaning you're better served doing what you've done than actually being just operating on one person. Not that that's not a very noble, but if you're operating on one person at a time, you wouldn't be able to be this voice that's really your skill set, to be a connector and a hustler and go get people to donate and make this thing known. So it's interesting how people end up finding not their true passion, their true calling.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So I did. And then I came back after that second year. I was 30. I was very broke by then because I'd given all my money to the organization and many of the people that I'd met there. And I was crashing on a closet floor on Spring and Mercer on a second floor loft apartment in Soho, New York City for free. And just said, hey, I'm going to try to bring clean and safe drinking water to everybody in the world before I die. And the only idea I had was charity water, a charity that helps people get water. Mm-hmm. So not very creative. But that was 15 years ago. And you've dedicated your life to this? 15 years. Yeah, we've raised now over $700 million and helped 15 million people get water across 29 countries. What's the vessel of the water? Yeah, we fund now 14 different technologies from a $10,000 well to a $65 personal bio sand filter for a family, to rainwater harvesting systems, to these huge, multi-million-dollar solar gravity fed systems, all across, now 29 countries.
Okay. So, now do you travel constantly?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I've been to 70 countries now. I've been to Ethiopia 31 times. So over the last 15 years, there's a lot of miles back and forth to the places where we work. But you might find this interesting, just like kind of going back to day one of Charity Water. The first thing I did, because I didn't have any other ideas, was just to throw a party in a nightclub. So our first fundraiser was in the meatpacking district, a place called Tenjun, before the club had ever opened.
I know.
Yeah, it hadn't opened yet, and Eugene and Mark gave it to me for free, and we got a bunch of great people to host the event, and I just charged everyone $20 to get in as a donation. And that night we raised $15,000. It was my 31st birthday, and we immediately took 100% of the $15,000 to Uganda. We did our first well. We fixed a couple others, and then we sent the photo proof, video proof, and the GPS satellite images back to the 700 people that attended. And we said, you came, you gave $20, and here's exactly where your money went and what it did.
Exactly. I get it.
And that was not happening at scale in a lot of the big charities. And, my kind of big idea when I started Charity Water, I had come across this statistic that 42% of Americans don't trust charities. And more recently, NYU Wagner did a study, found 70% of people believe charities waste their money.
They're right.
It's like, you had one job, right? 7 out of 10 donors think that a charity is going to waste their money in some part. So, from day one, 15 years ago, we separated the overhead from the water project costs. So we have run with 2 separately audited bank accounts for 15 years. And not only do we give 100% of all donation now for 15 years to the field, we pay back credit card fees, which sounded like a good idea when we're small and now costs, $750,000.
Number one, the transparency is the key. The whole time, like someone sends money to some celebrity who posts some link because there's a koala that's been burned in a fire, and then they never have any idea where it went. And if you constantly communicate and say, okay, and your needs change. Sometimes you say, okay, this is what we need. We need money because we're doing 100,000 crisis kits for this, and this is what they're going to include.
Yep.
Then you get there and people don't need a blanket and they don't need this entire, and then you say, okay, guess what? We're finding that refugee relocation. That's what people, and that, or if you donate, you're going to be donating, and this is going to the Chabad. This is going to churches. This is going to children's schools. Like, you kind of, let people know that they're part of it, and you give them updates, and that, I couldn't agree with you more. And the same thing, 100% goes to the effort, because I'm an initiative. And so everything that comes into Be Strong 100% goes. I pay my own way, my own travel, anything. And then my partner has like a 2.5% overhead, which is insane. It's like so low because he's super lean, and we partner with volunteers, etc. But that's goes in the overhead fund. Like, if you donate to Be Strong, that's it. So we think very similarly, and it solves a problem, because people, I've had the big orgs come to me and send celebrities to me and say, we can't do anything with them. They want to spend $30,000 on a plane to go help in Puerto Rico, and we don't do that. And they say we don't do this a lot because they're big ocean liners, and they take a long time to get their shit together. And it's always like one lane that they're in, that they do this one thing. They can't like pivot and be nimble and figure out, customize to what's going on right there. I'm sure you've seen every country has some different thing that you didn't think about, and some different struggle to overcome. It's like a new business every time. Sure.
Yeah. Well, that has been absolute kind of key to our success, is trying to restore trust. There's so many people skeptical and disenchanted. It sounds like you're doing this really well also. And then just closing the loop, proving to people what the money's done. So I
love it. You just said closing the loop. Exactly. They feel like they're part of a crusade.
Yeah. And, we've got, now, over 50,000 water projects up on Google Earth on our website. Every single water project comes with a GPS coordinate, the satellite image, the information of the village. So we just believe like transparency is kind of the way to win. And that has helped us now, help over 15 million people get access to water. I think without that model, we would have done far, far less, and the movement would be so much smaller.
And you're the visionary of it. You're the strategist. It's your mission. You decide where you're going to do this, how it's going to work.
Well, we have a whole team now, Bethenny. I mean, it's much, much smarter people than me, water experts with decades of experience, who are out there managing 1,600 local staff, working for 49 partner organizations. So there's a whole kind of machine now.
How many people work not in those like satellite?
Yeah, just about 100 at HQ, at Charity Water HQ.
Where's HQ?
It's been in New York City, but now people have distributed. So our team is across 27 states. We actually just got everybody together last week for an organization meeting, which was great. So
do you have like a board and they pay all the overhead? So it's separate. Do you like raise money just for overhead? It's on the board?
It's not the board. We have a community called The Well, and there are 129 families from all over the world. And they give, they start at $100,000 a year towards the overhead side. And we have some families giving it $1 million a year. So that pays for every single toner, package for the Epson copier, every flight, every credit card fee, every salary, every insurance cost or phone bill. And they've been doing that for 15 years.
Yeah, it's something I should think about. I mean, it's not been a problem at all because my partner always gets donations, which go to the overhead and the warehouse and everything. But it's something to think about because I have so many billionaires that every time something goes on, they want to donate and they get involved because they know me and I'm a business person. But to make it more, just something that is consistent, like you have certain people that are sort of almost like subscribers and they're just paying all year long. So you always know you're good to go. So how much money does it take for the overhead a year? Like how much you have to bring in every year?
This year's budget is $128 million in total. And the overhead will be 22 maybe. So we run it about 80%, 20% every year. So 80% of the money goes to the programs, even though we have two completely separate accounts. So 129 families paying for the 20 cents on the dollar.
Yep.
And then 1 million donors getting this pure way to give, where all of it goes to the field.
So you're married?
I am married. Yes. I married my second employee. That's a whole nother story.
Oh, so you have this life of philanthropy together.
Yep. We worked together for a decade and then started having kids. And she took a break from Charity Water and she now coaches nonprofits on how to market and fundraise and try to scale and get noticed based on her decade of experience.
That's amazing.
And we've got a 5.5-year-old and a 7.5-year-old.
Oh, nice. And they're all happy in Nashville?
Yeah, we moved to a farm during COVID in Pennsylvania, a couple hours outside of New York City, and we've been down in the South now for 6 months. And I'm assistant coaching baseball, and it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
I'm in New York City tomorrow. I mean, I'm still incredibly connected to our community in Manhattan, and
you kept your place?
I'm there all the time. No, we didn't. Okay. We were just renting.
No,
gosh, we couldn't even dream of affording to do that. Nor could we ever afford to buy, in New York City.
So what's next? Like where is the big problem right now? Where are I'm aware of this issue because only when it comes up when I'm doing relief work in Puerto Rico and we see that they have no clean water and then people are sending water purification systems in. I've seen it in the Bahamas, but I only see it during like a disaster. So do you do that too? Or you're really just about permanent infrastructure in places that never had clean water?
We've done a little bit of disaster response, but only in the countries where we have a long history or a footprint. Mm-hmm. So, when Flint happened, when Puerto Rico happened, we sent our donors to other organizations who actually had been there. Nobody needed a New York City based, org with no experience trying to parachute into Michigan and grab donor dollars. So typically when there's a disaster, we're blogging about it or offering kind of a recommended list of partners that we have relationships with. And then, when the Nepal earthquake happened, we've been there for more than a decade. So we really leaned into relief efforts there. Same thing in Ethiopia with the crisis fund and the Haiti earthquake. So we've done some stuff, but we need to be in a country and really have those relationships.
Yeah.
I think what's next, there's 771 million people without water. That's 1 out of 10 people alive.
That's insane.
We've helped 15 million. That's 1/50th of the work that needs to be done.
Does that make you feel like positive or defeated? Because I know that sometimes it feels like the situation in Ukraine feels like pissing in the ocean. It feels like, what's the point? It's like sad.
It makes me feel like we're in the second inning, like the best, better yet be ahead. Right now, when I get really depressed, I fill up Madison Square Garden with 15 million people, and it's 750 sold out Madison Square Gardens. So, imagine seeing Billy Joel 750 nights in a row, right? Like at the Garden. So it's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's more than, all the people that live in New York and all the boroughs. It's states full of people. It's small countries full of people. But it's a fraction of what is needed. And the urgency of the 771 million people who did not choose to be born in the 10% of the world any more than I chose to be born in Philly in a middle-class family where I'd always have water.
Right.
We have now built the capability over 15 years. We have a responsibility to go faster, to grow the movement, to raise more money, to invite more people to join us and, fight for a world where everybody has clean water to drink.
It's like it's literally a basic need.
Everyone thinks this is a good idea, Bethenny, right? Like whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, if you're a person of faith, if you're not, regardless of where you stand on, contentious social issues, like everybody can stand for water.
Yeah, I agree.
It's it's an inarguable common good. Mm-hmm. So that's allowed us to build, a base of now 1 million supporters from 150 countries, but it's a fraction of what's needed. So the thing I'm probably most excited about is I was with the founder of a huge subscription business in Ethiopia, a few years ago. And, he basically said, why do you start over every January 1? We were only getting one-time donations. He said, why don't you build a community of people who give every single month, right? We've got Spotify, we've got Netflix, we've got Dropbox, we've got Disney Plus, we've got Hulu. So a few years ago, Charity Water launched a monthly giving community called The Spring, and it helped triple the impact of the organization. People just giving $30 or $40 a month. Yeah,
they don't even remember. Why aren't these individual governments, or the governments have no money? Why aren't governments giving you something?
They are. The governments have a fraction of the money at their disposal. I mean, Charity Water can put in a single year what the entire water government budget of a small country in Africa is. There's in many of these countries where we work, 95% of the people are shareholder farmers. They're not paying tax, right? So the government is taking a limited budget and trying to develop roads and healthcare systems and schools and electricity and water, right? So, we're seeing, maybe we're always advocating for an overinvestment in water. We think sometimes other stuff gets done instead of water.
No, I'm listening to you. I'd rather have clean water than know anything. If I had to choose to go to school or to have clean water, I'd rather have clean water.
Yeah. So we are, outside of the despotic governments or regimes, and there are a few of those around the world, we see governments really want everybody to have clean water. I mean, it's embarrassing to go to the UN and have half your country drinking. So we don't find that our work is met with resistance. It's really met with partnership. Let's help get more drilling rigs in the country. Let's use the government funding to match charity water money. We have a long-standing partnership with Rwanda, where every dollar we put into water in Rwanda, the district and federal government come up with 45 cents each. So we get basically a 90 cents on the dollar match. So we're able to do almost double the work, as the government says, we don't have a huge budget, but we wanted to go farther, and we wanted to attract outside humanitarian investment in a sustainable way.
How much money would it take to get the 771 million people clean water?
We think it's about 135 billion. So, 13% of one of the $1 trillion stimuluses, right?
Yeah. And you've talked to all these big billionaires that have all their own charities, and they've donated or they haven't?
Bethenny, I'm always open for ideas. So we have started, we've got very, very generous people who have given, 7-8-figure gifts. But what I'm really most excited about, as I was saying, is the spring, is this community of people that are showing up $30, $40, $50 a month, $10 a month, now across 149 countries. That is adding up to more than the billionaires' investments, right? A whole groundswell of people. So that's what I'm focused on a lot.
And you can keep increasing that because people will see more return on their results.
The average person listening probably has somewhere between 10 and 15 subscriptions. And, we wanted to create a dynamic community where instead of getting music or movies or magazines, or content, 100% of what people give every month goes directly to provide water, and the most basic need for humans. And then we are reporting back with stories of impact and trying to make people feel really connected to, almost win every dollar every month. We have a sense of stewardship. So if the old charity model was like, set it and forget it, right? Get a donor signed up into your monthly community and then just hope they forget about it. We're actually doing the opposite. We're trying to engage them. We're trying to prove where the money's going and create a dynamic community.
Yeah. What if you could get one of these subscription streamers to add $1 to somebody's monthly for this cause? Or, or airlines at $1 on every airfare just is added for clean water in the countries that they fly to, or things like that.
If anyone's listening and is in the airline business or a streamer, we'd love to work with people. We have a great brand partnerships team, and there's a great video, Bethenny, that's gotten like 70 or 80 million views now. It's actually called The Spring, and people could just go to thespring.com. That's even a way to help, is just watch the video, learn a little more about the issue, and then share it.
Okay, so last question is your rose of your career and your thorn.
I think the rose of the career is just reaching the 15 million person milestone in our 15th year. That, it felt like a moment in time, where, okay, we've done something. We built an organization. I can imagine getting to 100 million people with water now, with 15 million behind us. I think the thorn, I started too late. I started this at 30. I wasted a decade. And I also believe nothing is wasted. And I was able to, take some of the things that I learned, I guess, running around promoting nightclubs.
I think so. You wouldn't have had the skill set.
But, it also, yes, it also feels like I just wasted 10 years selfishly and had nothing to show for that decade. And I'd wish I'd gotten started earlier and there'd be more people with water.
Well, and also, I guess this is a message for people listening that I think people think they can't get involved because it really seems intangible. It's not that, just like business, it's not that easy to get into philanthropy in a meaningful way. You could donate money, you could put a link. I say to people the communication and literally without people on social media, my followers, I wouldn't have done probably now it's going to be over $400 million of relief that we've done in the last several years. And it's because of them. Yep. But I do think that it's helpful for people to listen to your story because people do want an entry point. They want to do something. It's so funny because a lot of my friends say to me, we're boxing up clothes and can we drop them off? And I'm thinking, we're sending, hundreds of thousands of pounds from major companies like Levi's that call and Goya and Bumblebee. So they can't enter because I can't take a box of clothes. It's not even going to be helpful to me. It would just be more work for my team. And someone else, can my kids come over and help you box up? And I'm like, we have a warehouse in Miami if you want to fly them down to Miami and they can put things in boxes. But for people to have a real impact and do something meaningful, it's not as easy. That's why you had to call all these different places to just get a job for free being a volunteer. So if you have any advice for people listening to have some sort of an impact and to find their way in, I wonder what that would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with just the break from apathy and getting involved in stuff and figuring out what you're passionate about. Maybe it's, women and girls around the world. Maybe it's a justice issue. Maybe it's hunger. Maybe it is water. Maybe it is, reaching people who've been affected by disasters in a really timely way. I think then try to go a little deeper, maybe to understand that issue, move beyond a donor to, get some domain expertise in that. So you can become an ambassador. You can become an advocate. You can actually know what you're talking about. Yeah. So true. And then bring others into that cause. There's so much needless suffering in the world, Bethenny. I mean, we look around and there's so much capital. There's so much inert capital. Mm-hmm. And I think it's our job as social entrepreneurs or those leading movements or causes to really make compelling cases for people to be generous, to use their time, to use their talent, to use their money in the service of others. And, there's only two games in town, love and service. Mm-hmm. Selfishness does not end well. Mm-hmm. Someone will always have more money. They will always have a better car. Someone's going to have a better house, a more famous partner. And, I think that it's really that shift, the paradigm shift in perspective to say, how can I be useful? How can I give what I've been blessed with to others? Mm-hmm. And the more you do that, the more you give, the more you give. Right? It's like the more you get engaged in things, the more you want to be engaged
it's so
in positive
true.
Things. It's like the more you consume, and that just leads to a very different place.
Totally.
We've all been with people that have 30 cars. Like, it started with one, right? And then I need another one, and then I need a third. And like, you're not driving 30 cars. But we also know people, who are giving and giving and giving and dynamically giving of their time and their talent and their money. And I think I would just encourage people to find the joy and the freedom that comes with service. And, loving your neighbor as yourself. I mean, charity is actually a beautiful word. It just means love. Mm-hmm. It just means love. It means to help others in need, getting nothing in return.
But a lot of business people listen. And I do think it feels for people to, you said, learn something, be educated on something and know about it. I do think that every time you do something different to help people, it's like business because you don't know what the language you're talking about. You don't know what PPE masks are. And then you become totally fluent in that language because you have to learn it. You have to get an education in it. So for people who are business minded, I don't think most people make that connection between business and philanthropy. But if you have that sort of entrepreneurial spark, it can be used for something so positive. I just do think that there is a total, you kind of just like, wait, I don't know about that. How do I get my way in? How do I figure out? How do I get my foot in the door? Just go, show up there, figure it out. You know what I mean? Just get on the road. You got to get on the road. You can't be stuck in the business plan. That's how I feel about that.
And listen, everybody's, I know you've raised so much. You have such a compassionate, engaged, group of people. So I just want to, thank you and thank your community for all the good that that they've been supporting around the world.
Well, they can support you too. How do they donate?
Thespring.com or charitywater.org. Thespring.com or charitywater.org. We'd love for people to learn more about our work. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, guys, let's donate. Let me know when this airs if you saw that anybody donated. I'll be very proud of my audience because they're pretty engaged and awesome people. Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. It was great talking to you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So that was Scott Harrison. I had not heard of him, although we've crossed paths in New York, I'm sure. Very interesting to dedicate your life to philanthropy after a life of debauchery. I like that. It's inspiring for other people who are feeling hopeless, useless, depressed, meaning what's the point? You know, the way sometimes we all think, like, what is the point of all this? And 771 million people not having clean water is extremely sad and frustrating. And think about such a basic need. It's water, like drinking swampy, green, disgusting, sludgy water that literally makes me want to cry. I mean, it just makes me sad because I've faced that with people in Puerto Rico and the Bahamas, but this is just another level that people have never had clean water. And maybe they've even had schools and other things, but is there anything more important than clean water? So I think that that's really an interesting cause. I like it. I would love to help. But I know what that feels like, feeling like you're not even scratching the surface because with what's going on in Ukraine. And if I think about the numbers of people that we can take out that are refugees, and that we can help and relocate, it's a small percentage of the whole. It's not even that small, but it's probably like maybe 10% of the problem. But, do your part, but really do your part. Like really get involved, figure it out, learn what you care about and take the next step. Everybody wants to check the box so they could say they checked the box. But what about actually doing something that really helps somebody else and feeling good about it? So I think that's a really, that's a good message for that one. And that sometimes I have people on that you've heard of that are famous. And sometimes I have people on who have been pitched to me that just seem like they have an interesting story. And certainly someone whose goal in life is that everybody in the world will have clean water. That seems like a pretty good guest to me. And that it is, it does seem like it's treating it like business. You've got to get things done. You have to be a person that isn't going to get defeated and will just tackle the problem. So many times it will feel like you're not making a difference, but you got to get on the road and get involved in a real way. Or just keep spreading the message. But I do think getting actually involved is better. Just Be is hosted by me, Bethenny Frankel. Just Be is a production of Be Real Productions, iHeartRadio, and Blue Duck Media. Our EPs are Morgan Lavoie, Antonio Enriquez, and Kara Hitt. To catch more moments from the show, follow us on Instagram at Just Be with Bethenny.